On today's episode of You Asked, lots of questions about calibration and lots of questions about the off-angle performance of the LG C4 and the Bravia 9 TV. So we'll get into all of that. Plus, what is the opposite of burn-in, and should you be worried about it? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and this is You Asked, the show where I answer questions you asked in hopes that I can help you and others with similar tech questions. If you've got a question for me, please email it to youasked@digitaltrends.com, and we'll see if your question gets picked to be answered on the show. So let's start by addressing a series of questions I got about the off-angle performance of a couple of TVs that I recently reviewed. Boo Tin Show writes, I've seen other reviews mentioning about a green tint that's visible when viewed at an angle. He's talking about the LG C4. Have you noticed this? And I Am Cosmic Dude wrote, what about the off-angle green tint? Right, so before I answer, just a clarification for anyone watching that may not understand off-angle. When we talk about off-angle performance, we're talking about how the picture quality shifts when you are viewing a TV from off to the side. If we think of a three-person couch in front of a TV, like we have here in the studio, all three of those seats are going to be pretty much an on-angle position. But if you have a sectional couch, for example, any of the seats at the far end of the side section would be in an off-angle viewing position to varying degrees. Also relatable might be if you're viewing a TV from an adjacent room, like I sometimes do here from the kitchen. My view of the TV here is definitely off angle. Okay, so with all of that understood, the picture of almost any TV is gonna have some degradation when viewed from steep angles off to the side. OLED TVs historically have very little degradation to the picture quality, while LCD-based TVs have widely varying degrees of degradation. Sometimes it's really bad, sometimes it's surprisingly good. Generally, only the most expensive LCD TVs have really amazing off-angle performance that can come anywhere close to an OLED TV. So with an OLED TV like the LG C4, I understand the presumption is that the off-angle performance would be stellar, as it is on most OLED TVs. That being the case, if a reviewer says the off-angle performance of the C4 exhibits something like a green tint, that would be considered noteworthy because it goes against the expectation. Now, in the case of the C4, it was ratings.com, which claimed there was a, quote, noticeable green tint when viewed from an angle, end quote. Also noteworthy is that ratings put that as the only con in the pros and cons section. In fact, the green tint issue is mentioned a total of 8 times in the written review at ratings.com's website. So naturally, those of you aware of this ratings.com review thought it weird that I didn't mention this green tint thing in my review and asked that I now comment on it. Unfortunately, the C4 is gone now, so we can't make B-roll specifically around this issue for this video. But we did capture a good amount of off-angle B-roll when we shot the review footage, and we're showing that here. Keep in mind, we color grade our videos because we shoot in S-Log, but we keep the color grading consistent and do our best to accurately represent what the TV looks like in real life within our video, your display device notwithstanding. What I can tell you is this. I watched that TV from the kitchen more times than I can count, and I never once thought to myself, dang, that's some green tint right there. I'm not saying it was non-existent, I'm just saying that it wasn't a big deal to me. Did skin tones take a hit in some content? I suppose so, but what I experienced was not nearly as significant as I think ratings makes it sound in their review. Now, the thing is, not all OLED panels are the same. It's entirely possible that what ratings got and what I got are very different in performance. I'm not calling into question the legitimacy of ratings evaluation. Those folks know what they're doing. I'm just not sure how to read what they wrote. I'm not sure if it was so significant that they were like, yikes, this is not a great viewing experience. or if the tenor and tone of their commentary comes more from the fact that they weren't expecting any off-angle anomaly at all. So its very presence was a surprise, and that's why the commentary around it was so prevalent in their video. I mean, looking at it, they gave the off-angle performance a score of 8.9, which sounds pretty strong to me. But you know what? Let's ask them to weigh in right here on this video. Hey Ratings fam, can you please weigh in the comments section and let us know in whatever manner possible just how severe the green tint was for you? Perhaps not relative to other OLED TVs like the C3, but just generally speaking, would you say it was severe, prohibitive even, or was it more of a surprise? Noticeable, but not like soul-crushingly disappointing. And thanks in advance for taking the time to chat with us, should you choose to do so. Oh, and y'all might want to let them know I called them out because I doubt they're sitting around waiting for the next episode of You Asked to drop so they can watch it. By the way, yes, I do have contacts there at Ratings and I could email them, but I think it's a little more fun to have a little YouTube exchange, don't you? Next up, the Bravia 9. Scott Weaver Photo Video wrote, I might have missed it, but what about the viewing angle? So first off, Scott Weaver Photo Video, thank you for asking in a nice way. But second, yeah, guys, I gotta admit, not commenting on the viewing angle in the video about a TV that tries so hard to compete with OLED in so many ways was a really unfortunate miss. I mean, transparently, I leave relevant stuff on the cutting room floor all the time, usually because I get super focused on the most standout stuff on a TV, but also sometimes the video is just getting too stinking long and I can't cram everything in there. But this was a miss, and I'm really sorry. Y'all know I try to do right by you guys every time, but I'm human, I screw up, and this is one of those times. So how about that Bravia 9 viewing angle? Y'all are probably not gonna like this, but I swear it's the most revealing answer that I can give you. I didn't really notice it. I mean, it's not like I didn't look. Like I said, I'm watching TV from the kitchen over here a lot. If viewing angle is bad, I'm gonna notice it and I'm definitely gonna say something about it. The viewing angle on the Bravia 9 is not poor. Is it as good as Samsung or Sony's absolute best off-angle TVs? No. There have been times when I was shocked at how good the off-angle performance was, whether it's Samsung Ultra viewing angle or Samsung's X wide angle. The real-world off-angle performance of a TV with that tech definitely varies. For example, if you slap wide-angle viewing help on an ADS Pro type panel, which already has better viewing angles by its nature, it's gonna be even better than the same tech built onto a VA style LCD panel. So the Bravia 9 does not have OLED level off-angle viewing prowess, but it is way, way, way better than most of the LCD TVs that I tested in here. I mean, no shade intended toward Hisense and TCL, or even like Samsung's mid-tier TVs. But VA panel TVs with no off-angle viewing tech help, that kind of off-angle drop-off in contrast and color saturation, sometimes there's color shift as well, that is so noticeable that I can't not talk about it. If it's a problem, I will mention it in the review. So again, Bravia 9 viewing angles. Not the best I've seen, but way, way, way better than most LCD TVs. Next, let's talk about TV calibration, and then we'll get to the whole opposite of burn-in thing, which I think is super interesting, so stick around to the end for that one. I really want folks to understand what a good calibration will do for you and help folks understand if or when it's worth paying for one. So here's two questions around calibration. One comes from Henry, who writes, considering your praise of the LG C4, do you think it's worthwhile to have one calibrated with Calman, or is it so good out of the box that it's not worth messing with? I'm mainly interested in getting photos viewed on Apple TV to match what they look like on Apple screens with True Tone turned on. And then Craig writes, I've purchased a Bravia 9 and have questions about what to expect if I have a TV calibrated. Do calibrators do calibration of all TV modes like movie, sports, cinema, vivid, etc.? Or does calibration only get done on the custom mode? What should I expect from a calibration in terms of explanation of options and what I should or should not change as I use the TV? Guys, here's the thing about a TV calibration. A really good calibrator is going to dial the TV in so it looks its best for just about any scenario you want, whether you're watching SDR, HDR, or Dolby Vision content. The variables I think you need to consider are: how far off is the TV from what you want with its factory picture modes, and how varied are your viewing scenarios? Let's take Henry, for example. Henry, if you're gonna watch almost exclusively movies and TV shows in a dark room and want the most accurate picture with the least expense, you can set the LG C4 to filmmaker mode or cinema mode or Dolby Vision dark mode when watching Dolby Vision content, and the performance of that TV is gonna be so good, I'd say probably you don't need to hire a calibrator. However, if you watch during the day, often when there's a lot of light coming into the room, or if you want sports to look vivid but not garish, and you aren't sure what kind of motion smoothing you do or don't want, a calibrator is going to be able to dial in several of those picture modes to work best for you and your viewing situations. Now, you mentioned something about pictures on an Apple TV looking the same way they do on an Apple display with True Tone turned on. That is highly specific. If you want that, get a calibrator. They are going to need to measure what that Apple display is doing and then basically set up the TV to mimic exactly that. That is a highly specific thing that you want there. I say take a picture mode like maybe Vivid and have it highly altered to make that picture mode look like your Apple display. And that way you still have other picture modes for like anything else that you might use the TV for. Moving on, I actually started kind of answering Craig's question there too. Craig, a calibrator can adjust the performance of all or just one of those picture modes to give you what you want out of the TV for different viewing situations. Maybe you want a cooler white point for sports, a lot of folks do, but you want the colors to be as accurate as possible. That's kind of a complicated dance, and it requires some expertise and the right equipment to get it done well. The key is to get a consultation with a calibrator and find out what they are capable of and willing to do. Not all calibrators are super duper knowledgeable. Talk to them. Find out if they're willing to calibrate SDR, HDR, and Dolby Vision to your liking. Make sure they're going to adjust the white balance, the grayscale, and color for all the picture modes and according to your needs. So for example, they can target D65 white point for movie watching in dim environments, but they can target a slightly cooler color temp for SDR TV watching in the day, and yet another calibration for sports watching in the day. I'll also say that if you buy like a TCL or Hisense TV, one that offers great picture quality for the money, but not exactly accurate picture quality, a calibration may be worth it if you have high standards. If you buy a really expensive TV and the reviewer says about it that the out-of-box movie mode is stellar and that's all you're ever going to use, then probably you don't need to pay for a calibration. Hope that helps. Okay, so this next question was a fun one for me to ponder. Mike writes, I just ordered my new S95D, congratulations, and came across a question which I'd love to have your take on. A ton of movies/shows feature black bars since they aren't in the same aspect ratio as most TVs. Is there any risk of burn-in because of that? Are there any ways of possibly preventing it? Okay, so as a quick reminder for everyone, burn-in on modern TVs, specifically OLED TVs, is a condition in which the organic material in the pixels begins to wear down and doesn't get as bright as it did when the TV was brand new. Now, when the OLED pixels wear uniformly, you don't get a burn-in effect. However, if the TV displays a static element at a high level of brightness for a long time, that static element is going to wear down the pixels faster in that area than the rest of the TV. That's why it's so common to see channel logos or chyrons, those banners at the bottom of news stations and weather channels. That kind of stuff triggering burn-in, where you can see ghosts of those things even when you aren't watching that channel or playing that game. With letterbox bars on the top and the bottom, or pillar box bars on the sides of the image, you have the opposite conditions to what would trigger burn-in. Those pixels aren't being used at all. they are in a state of not being worn out. So burn-in in the black areas is not possible. That does not mean, however, that there's zero chance of that condition having an effect on an OLED TV. If you were to watch nothing but letterboxed content in one specific aspect ratio so that the black bars were always there and they were always the same size, and you watched a lot of that content, I'm talking about 8 hours of letterboxed content a day, for months, maybe years on end, theoretically, you could start to notice on non-letterbox content that the black bar areas on the top and the bottom were uniformly brighter than the center of the TV, simply because those pixels rarely got used, never experienced any degradation, and were naturally brighter than all the pixels that did get used on the TV with regularity. What would you call that? The opposite of burn-in? Burn off? Non-burned? Should we all collectively decide to give it a name? Let me know down in the comments. Of course, that's all just for fun, because while technically feasible, I have never seen this effect. So I'm not sure we need to give it a name. I'm not saying it's never happened. I've just never seen it myself. And I think we all know there aren't hordes of folks in forums complaining about it. So as long as you vary your content like most folks do, I don't think you have anything to worry about. But it does raise the question, would a warranty that covers burn-in, like the warranty that LG offers on the G4 OLED, would it cover burn off, or whatever we're gonna call it? Kind of fun to think about. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please click the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like. I'm spent.